Now on Indianapolis This Week, the city looking at millions of dollars in new infrastructure improvements.
How are you going to pay for all that?
We sit down with the mayor of Carmel, seeking a sixth term and responding to critics about his vision and the city's debt.
They're wrong on the number.
Plus, is the state facing another major labor fight? The plan one group says will save you millions of dollars. And the showdown over the Religious Freedom Act. Our insiders weigh in.
From RTV6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Welcome to Indianapolis This Week, where we start today with the massive new projects coming to Carmel. Mayor Jim Brainard just announced the plan for millions of dollars in new infrastructure projects. The spending has become a key issue in the race for mayor. Brainard is seeking his sixth term in the office. He says the city has plenty of money to cover those expenses. He also showed us the developments he believes need to be completed, like the city center. Brainard defends the city's debt load and even makes a guarantee about property taxes.
If you get another 4 years, what do you want the voters to hold you accountable on? What should that checklist look like if I'm a voter in Carmel, that I could say, you know what, I gave him another 4 years and now he can stand on this platform?
We want to finish the city center out, to have a walkable, pedestrian-friendly downtown. We want to continue to keep our tax rates low. They're the lowest of any city our size or larger in the state of Indiana. We want to keep our great credit rating, our AA+ rating from Standard & Poor's. We want to see some additional development in the Art and Design District. We want to see on the east side roundabouts up and down Gray Road. We want to see bike paths on the east-west streets. We want to see a roundabout interchange at 96 and Keystone. We want to see 96th Street extended past Range Line over into the US 31 corridor. We want to continue to grow that business base. We have 75 corporate headquarters, regional or national headquarters in Carmel, which is one of the highest levels of business taxes being paid in the state of Indiana, but we want to continue to grow that, continue to bring good jobs to Carmel. On the west side, we want to continue our bike and path program. We're down to only two stoplights on the west side of US 31. We'd like to get those two replaced to make it safer. And then continue to redevelop this area so we don't have any...
How are you going to pay for all that? That's a big list with a lot of things going on, roundabouts, bike paths, development. How will you pay for it?
We pay for it with good management. We pay for it with the capacity that we have. We're bringing in more money every year than we spend. And we look to federal and state and county funding sources as well.
You have a lot of critics. You know that.
I have some.
You have some critics in the sense of John Asaturo and your mayoral candidate opponent, Rick Sharp. They say that you are loading up the city with debt, that it's more than $1 billion, and that this was going to lead to higher taxes. Are they wrong?
Yes. First of all,
so they're wrong
on the number.
Okay.
They're wrong on the number. It's $600 million. Still a lot of money. But we have a lot of revenue. Here's an important point. Only 15% of our revenue as a city goes towards debt payments. If you were to go out as a young man or a young woman and buy a new house, the bank would let you go to about 30%. We're at 15%, half of that. That's why we have that AA+ credit rating. We also have a water company and another utility company. 25% of that debt doesn't even come from taxes. It comes from those utility fees. And here's a key number. 52% of our debt is not being paid by residential taxpayers. It's being paid by the business taxpayers to make improvements in areas of the business parks. So a new business comes to town, we allow them to use their taxes, borrow against it, and use their taxes to pay off that loan to make public, and that's the key, public improvements that are needed in that area. Only 3% of our debt is being paid. 3%. 3 cents out of every dollar of Carmel's debts being paid by residential taxpayers. And that's one of the lowest in the state of Indiana. Debt's a tool. The state of Indiana doesn't allow cities to save enough money by law to build roads and bridges and sewer plants and water plants. So we're forced to go borrow money at very low rates because it's deductible on the bond buyer's federal income tax return. So we have very low rates, 2 and 3%. And these debts are scheduled to be paid off. We're paying off millions of dollars every year. And by the time the city is done growing, we should have most of our transportation system and most of our big infrastructure projects that we need in place, and that's the key.
So Mr. Sharp and Asaturo make these claims against the debt. Are they being irresponsible?
Well, I think when you include interest as part of the debt, that's misleading to the public. When you don't explain that our debt's being paid off, it's scheduled, and when Mr. Sharp quite honestly criticizes the debt, yet voted for almost all of it, over 85% of it, that is irresponsible.
What assurances, and it's very difficult to give assurances when you're the CEO of a big city like yourself, that there will not be any kind of tax increases over the next 4 years? Is that possible to even do? Can you tell your citizens, listen, based on what I know today,
yeah,
I'm not looking at what some are calling the special benefits tax or any kind of tax enhancement, as some call them. Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible because we've got a 20-year history. Our administration has a 20-year history of promising that our taxes are at state level.
Am I getting an assurance then?
Yes, absolutely you are. We've done it for 20 years. There's no reason we can't continue to do it. We have a good fiscal plan in the city of Carmel. We project our revenues and our expenses out in a very detailed way for 10 years. The city of Carmel is in great financial shape. That's why we have a AA+ credit rating. It's easy in a political campaign to come in and make charges and criticisms, but look at our credit rating. It's one of the top in the country, and look at our administration's history. 20 years without any increases, with most residential property taxpayers paying less than they did in 1996.
Few people can run for a 6th term. Mm-hmm. You're doing that.
Yes, I am.
What is it about you? Because at the end of the day, everyone tries to knock you down, right? You've been through a number of these campaigns. You're not new to this, but you face some stiff opposition from your own party. What is it about you that allows you to survive in a very competitive field of men and women?
I think people in Carmel recognize that continuity and experience are valuable to the city. In any other job, if you've worked at it for a number of years, you've gotten better at it, that brings added value to it. And I think it's also important to remember we have critics, really as a percentage. If you look at our vote totals over the last few elections, it's a very small percentage. And these people can be very loud, but it's still a small percentage of people. We have a tremendous amount of support in the city of Carmel. Hundreds of people talk to me and ask me to run again. They want to see the city progress. They don't want to change direction because they like the direction the city's moving in.
Mayor Brainard, thank you. We have a special web extra for you, more of my one-on-one with the mayor, including the outcome from his visits to the White House. You'll find that posted in the video section of our website, theindychannel.com, and on the RTV6 app. Jim Brainard's opponent in May, Carmel City Councilman President Rick Sharp, who was a guest on this program last month. I reached out to him this morning for a response, and this is what he has to say. I'm happy to see that Mayor Brainard is finally admitting to debt, which amounts to nearly $1 billion or $11,500 for every man, woman, and child in Carmel. However, he goes on to say, I am disappointed that he still refuses to accept responsibility for his reckless actions. Under a Sharp administration, we will take serious steps to reduce our debt and put safeguards in place so that this does not happen again. This return to fiscal responsibility will allow our city to continue to move forward. We will continue to follow this race for you all the way up to the primary on May the 5th. Coming up, is it an assault on unions and construction workers or a way to save taxpayers' money? The fight over the common wage next on Indianapolis This Week. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We turn our attention now to a surprise focus during this year's General Assembly, the potential repeal of the common wage law in Indiana. State House reporter Katie Hines explains.
Rafael, the common wage law repeal is the surprise item of this session. It wasn't on anyone's agenda, but it now has the support of the governor, House Speaker Brian Bosma, and the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. The common wage law creates a state commission that sets wages to be paid for public construction projects that cost more than $350,000. It's a law that was first established here in Indiana 80 years ago. Those who want to repeal the law say that it will help save taxpayers money by keeping the costs of construction projects down and by giving local control to the wages that are paid. But opponents, including union leaders and some contractors, say driving those wages down will cause talented new workers not to join the construction industry and cause significant harm in the long run. They also say there are no facts that support a repeal will keep costs down. The bill's fate now lies in the Senate, and Senate leaders say that it will get a hearing, although one hasn't been scheduled yet. It's also unclear if it has the support to pass on that side because there are some Republicans who oppose it. Rafael.
Katie Hines at the State House, thank you so much. We can answer more of your questions about common wage. You can find those questions and answers on our website, theindychannel.com, as well as on the RTV6 app. Just search common wage. Among the groups pushing for repeal, Americans for Prosperity. We're joined now by the group's Indiana president, Chase Downham. The construction wage repeal bill has already been passed in the House. The Senate, though, has not been as open to the bill yet. They're going to look at it, right?
Right. The bill passed out of the House with a pretty strong vote, both with the House Speaker supporting that effort as well as Governor Pence. It's now in the Indiana Senate where we hope that the issue gets a hearing, and we're anticipating a favorable outcome that we're hoping to get behind.
Why do you think this bill will be a money saver? Because that is the main argument.
Absolutely.
One of the main arguments that you make is that if we were to repeal this law, it would save taxpayers money.
Absolutely.
How is that?
Yeah. Well, the best thing that we can do is look at other states that have had the law on their books and then repealed it. So in Ohio, for instance, they repealed this law for school construction projects back in the 90s, and in 5 years they estimated that they had saved about $500 million with no impact on quality. In Michigan they did a study, and over a 10-year period of time they estimated that they could have saved over $200 million a year simply by allowing the free market to set the wages and not some government panel that's doing it in a way that's not really, that we feel doesn't really benefit the open and competitive bidding process.
So keep it close to home here in Indiana. Those states sound nice, but I only care about my home state,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
On what projects can you guarantee the people who have to pay the bill, the taxpayer, that they will actually save money should this bill become law?
Right. I mean, that unfortunately, some of the best comparisons we have are in other states. There's estimates of anywhere from 10 to 20%.
Are we talking schools? Are we talking about road projects? What are we talking about?
This is for any state or state or local funded project, public construction projects. So things like schools, things like bridges. If folks think about, a lot of times there's a debate at the local level of whether or not they should build a new school building, whether or not there needs to be a new gymnasium. These are issues that we feel if there was an open and competitive bidding process, put wages into that rather than just the materials and other factors. If we had a truly competitive bidding process that included wages, we could see more return on taxpayer dollars and possibly have the opportunity for taxpayer relief. Right now, by having an arbitrary panel set the wages that all contractors must pay on a public construction project, we feel that we're really missing an opportunity to allow the free market to work and to see some taxpayer savings.
Is there an appetite for this? I know that when we went through the right to work fight, there were hundreds of people, thousands of men and women came to the State House. Will we see the same thing on this, or do you think this is going to just pass through the legislature, or will it?
Well, I think there's a healthy debate going on right now. We haven't maybe seen the crowds at the State House that we've seen in the past on some other labor-related issues, but we really see this more as a taxpayer issue at the end of the day. The folks that really should be concerned are those that are paying their tax bills. When you have local projects going on throughout the year in your community, folks really should ask themselves whether or not we're getting the best return on our tax dollars. And again, we think that an open and competitive bidding process, bringing wages into that process, is going to result in taxpayer savings and potentially in more projects, right? So if we can get 2 schools for the price of 1, we think that's a pretty good deal.
But there's no guarantee of that, right? I mean, we're saying that maybe there'll be some savings, but you can't guarantee 2 for 1.
Well, I think it's hard to say. We don't have a specific project we could point to right now that says this would be the net impact, because again, it's a free market. We'll have an open and competitive bidding process. We just think that based on what other states have experienced when they've repealed the law, we have a good opportunity for savings.
What do you say to those that oppose this bill and say, really, this is going to lead to less quality?
Right.
This is going to hurt working Indiana families, and this is just another attempt to really go around union rules, that you just really want to hire the cheapest people available to get the work done?
Well, I think on the quality front, there are literally thousands of regulations at the local, state, federal level that ensure quality in public construction projects. So we think that's pretty safe to say there. If you look at other states that repealed this law, like Ohio, for instance, they did an audit of all the construction projects for schools during that 5-year period, and folks had no complaints about quality whatsoever. And when we talk about quality, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're a contractor with a skilled, experienced, and trained workforce, the free market's pretty good about rewarding that through higher wages. So we think there's still a lot of opportunities at local level when folks may want to go with a contractor that pays their workers a little bit more for other factors that might be considered. We just simply think that should be part of the competitive bidding process. We shouldn't have an arbitrary wage set by a panel before any bids have even come in on the job.
Chase Downham with Americans for Prosperity, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Let us know how the bill goes and come back to Indianapolis this week. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Coming up next, our political insiders talk about that common wage repeal, plus the religious freedom bill next on Indianapolis This Week. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we bring in our political insiders to the round table. Dan Parker, former chairman of the Indiana Democratic Party, and Jennifer Hollowell, a top Republican strategist. Let's start talking about the common wage repeal. Is this a good idea for the Indiana economy?
I think it is, because it'll bring costs down. You know, they're estimating between 10 and 20%. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in public construction projects like schools. And, you know, there are a lot of states, 18 states do not have a law like this. Ohio is one of those. Michigan and Illinois are currently contemplating the same thing that we are. And so, you know, I think now may be the time for it.
Dan, can the unions even stop this? I mean, is this something that could, even if it were to pass in the Senate, is there any opposition to this from the labor side?
Well, to answer your original question, no, this is not a good idea. For a state that's in the bottom 10 for per capita income, depressing wages even further is a bad idea. But the bigger issue of this is that, you know, the union construction industry spends about $42 million a year in training. They train 96% of the apprentices that work in the construction industry here. So it's a bad idea from a training perspective. If the construction trades do not have the funds necessary to do the training, the state will have to pick that up. So it's a bad idea from that. It's also a bad idea because out-of-state contractors can then come in and bring in employees from out-of-state to do this work. Instead of local employees that are trained and have high quality, we'll have less quality and decreased wages.
But as I asked the gentleman from American Prosperity, Chase Downham, I asked him, is this really a run around the union? Is this another union fight? And we saw unions come out when we had the right to work battle. They came out in hundreds, thousands around the State House, but they lost. I mean, is there the power?
I found it interesting that he couldn't name one project where there would be savings. He couldn't name one. And if you look at the kind of projects that we've had here in the city of Indianapolis and across Indiana, where there's been an agreement between the construction trades and the contractors and government, you've had high quality delivered on time. And that's what you want from taxpayer purposes.
And Jennifer, from your side, is it possible that Republicans can say, look, we've seen this script before with the right to work, we beat them, and on this issue we may beat them again?
Well, I don't know that that's how they're looking at it. I mean, I do want to say I have a lot of respect for the training that goes on that Dan is talking about. And one of the things that you'll see is that Republicans are split on this issue. There were 13 Republicans in the House who voted against it. And, you know, there's a lot of debate in the Senate and some Republicans who are hesitant to support it. So, I mean, there is debate and a divide somewhat within the party, but certainly the majority view this as a free market issue, and one where it'd be best to let competition, let, you know, kind of free, open, fair market rule the day.
Another issue that's sort of divided all the parties is the bill being called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. There's some concern if that bill does pass that it could lead to some discrimination statewide. Any concern about that bill?
Well, you know, this is a bill that Dan may want to talk about more, but you know, folks and the vast majority of Republicans in the legislature are very supportive of this, and the proponents of it are believe that it's necessary in order to protect businesses and organizations from having their kind of deeply held religious beliefs violated or being forced to do something that goes against their religious beliefs. The folks on the other side, are worried that it will cause discrimination. I think the question is like, what is the question to which this is the answer? But Republicans are very adamantly pushing this forward.
30 seconds. You get the last word.
Well, I mean, this bill. I mean, every American believes in religious freedom. It's enshrined in our Constitution. This bill is searching for a problem. We all believe in religious freedom, but you shouldn't be able to use religion as a weapon. You shouldn't be able to use faith as a weapon. And I agree with Jen that this could lead to discrimination. It could be a law of unintended consequences, and it's just not needed. The legislature does not need to pass this. There's not a problem out there. We don't need it here in Indiana.
That's actually not what I said. That's what I said the opponents say, but there you go.
He's stirring the pot, and she came back. Thank you to you both. The conversation is always going on Twitter, and we invite you to join that conversation. You can find Dan, Jennifer, Mary Beth, Lara, and Abdul, and be part of the debate. Indianapolis This Week continues right after the break. Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. Next week, my one-on-one with Indiana Fever's great Tamika Catchings. We'll see you back here next Sunday. Have a great weekend.